has been ultra responsible, and we want to thank them also. Now, the last time that we provided an update to this community, we can tell you that since that time we have made some progress, a lot of collective progress in lowering our key metrics. Unfortunately, however, those COVID-19 metrics that we measure are still higher than we would like. And in the past few days, we've actually reached a plateau in our data. Preliminary data for last week shows that our positivity rate has increased to 4.2% after hitting a low of 3.5% for the week of September 20th. This fluctuation for all of us is very concerning. We have been below the 5% mark for the last 3 weeks, but we have seen that number go up and down, and so we are really concerned and want to make sure that it stays at a low number. Our infection rate has also decreased slightly since our last update, now sitting at 1.0 as of September 28th. We hope that this number also continues to go down and does not go back up. Our average daily case rate for last week was 11.5 cases, new cases per day per 100,000 residents, which is actually an increase from the previous week of September 20th, where we dropped to 10.1. And so we want this number to stabilize to at least under 10 cases, 10 new cases per day or lower. And we also have concerns about the upcoming changes that we're seeing to weather, which means that many of us who have been able to enjoy outdoor activities, that there is some uncertainty about what winter will bring. So therefore, all of those factors, including the fact that we see the fluctuating positivity rate, that we're concerned about the infection rate, and the new case number per day means that we are remaining in phase 2 of reopening. As you may remember, Governor Hogan made a few announcements last week. Those announcements involve nursing homes and child care facilities. And because we remain in phase 2, however, you should know that out of an abundance of caution, we are not allowing indoor visitation to resume at our nursing home to our elders who are very, very vulnerable, who we have to be very careful about. We want to make sure that we make decisions that are just really designed to keep them safe and sound, and so we do not believe that it is safe to resume indoor visitation with our elders at this point. In addition, child care facilities will not be able to raise their children to teacher ratios past the current limits that we have in place, and so we're keeping our two real vulnerable populations very safe, and we are going to remain at that level while we are still in a phase 2. I also want to remind parents and guardians that under our current guidelines, you are not allowed to enter the child care facility to drop off or pick up your babies. That must be coordinated outdoors. Again, I want to thank all of our residents and our business community for helping us to combat the virus so that we might be able to move forward. So please remember to continue wearing your face coverings, to make sure as well that you're practicing physical distancing and washing your hands. And as we continue to monitor and analyze our key metrics, we will provide an update in another 2 to 3 weeks, and hopefully at that point we will be able to move into a modified phase 3. That is our hope. So as we work to limit the spread of the virus, I want to mention a couple of other areas, and one is regarding National Harbor. We've been working really diligently to address issues that have arisen at the National Harbor over the summer. As some may have noticed, I noticed because I visited the National Harbor, there have been super large groups of young people who have been dropped off by their parents or taken ride share to the harbor, in fact, in the thousands. And these young people have created an environment that is not necessarily conducive to the business that is there, and we have had reports of fights, large groups that are there overtaking businesses with juveniles. There have been increased thefts, hotel parties hosted by parents for underage children who they leave in those hotel rooms. And so we have launched an effort combining the COVID-19 Ambassador Compliance Team and other county agencies and National Harbor businesses to come up with a strategy to address these issues. What I should tell you is that we are making adjustments that need to be made to keep the visitors, residents, and business owners at the harbor safe. But to be clear, the National Harbor, we do not want parents, first of all, to rent hotels for children. and to leave those children in those hotel rooms with their friends to have parties. It is important to note that the National Harbor is a project that we all enjoy, but it is a business. It is not the playground. It is not an amusement park. And it pains me to have to say that because I understand what our kids are going through. I have a 15-year-old as well, and I know during this time it has been challenging to find activities for them. But leaving unaccompanied youth at the National Harbor in the thousands for hours is not conducive to what we want there in terms of a business environment. And so we are working instead with the Department of Parks and Recreation to ensure that there are safe activities for young people to participate in. Like I said, again, I understand that for many of our young people and for their parents, this is a difficult time when we have so many restrictions on what is safe for our young people. I know they want to see each other. Many of them miss their friends. They want to come together. We totally get it. And so we know that for our young people, we need activities. And so we've done a few things. First, youth sports are very central and to many of our kids. We know that especially before this pandemic started, they were active in it. So that's why I'm happy to say that registration for several youth sports is now available online through the Department of Parks and Recreation. This programming includes baseball, softball, volleyball, lacrosse, 2-on-2 football, soccer classes. And so we know that these sports actually provide a lot of outlets for our kids. And for those who have been looking for opportunities, we encourage you to please sign your kids up for those activities. And we know that it's not just sports. If your children are anything like me, I was not necessarily heavily into sports as a child. And so there are other activities that are available as well, outdoors and online for our young people, to include visual arts, a clubhouse. There are classes on video game design, a virtual gaming tournament. We also have arts and crafts, fitness classes, and so much more. And we will continue to look out for those activities to add and expand the offering of activities that we have for youth. What I want Prince Georgians to know is that we are laser focused on this issue. This is something that we will resolve as a community to make sure that our children are constructively engaged, that they have things to do, especially as the weather changes, and that we are assisting parents. This is not about us criticizing anyone. What we're saying is that we do not want to, we know that there are unsafe situations for our kids, but we also don't want to overrun businesses to entertain our kids when it's our responsibility to find those activities for them. And so I want all of us, for those who are interested, rather, to go onto the website pgparksdirect.com. Again, pgparksdirect.com, to keep an eye out for those activities. I also want to announce the basketball hoops are being put back up at certain facilities maintained by the Department of Parks and Recreation. It will be outdoor locations and half court only. So at this time, we are allowing only drills or practice that is socially distanced, not pickup games or tournaments, impromptu tournaments to take place. And so we'll be monitoring those courts to ensure that the guidelines are followed, because we don't want our kids to get sick, to pass along the virus to each other and to take it home. So we're moving slowly on allowing high-risk sports out of an abundance of caution. And so what we want our young people to do is to be very careful, but we do want them to be able to have those activities. So we look forward to the time when we can fully bring back all of our youth sports and tournaments for our young people. But until we reach that point, we're going to have to continue to be cautious and do everything we can to limit the spread. Another potential concern that is coming up is around Halloween. We're a few weeks out, and I have to confess to you that for me and for my daughter, this is usually one of our favorite times of the year. I would have had my costume by now and been all ready to enjoy. I know so many of you are as well. But the CDC has issued guidelines and recommendations to make sure that we can still have a safe Halloween experience. And we know that our families are wanting to know what to do to give their children an enjoyable experience and while keeping them safe. And so what I can tell you, and I know Dr. Askew, I imagine, will probably come in and address this as well, but Halloween is going to have to look different this year during this pandemic. We are advising against traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating this year. Instead, we encourage families to do other activities like an indoor or outdoor scavenger hunt for their children, or walking around the neighborhood to look at Halloween decorations. We are also advising against traditional large-scale trunk or treat programs. However, drive-through trick-or-treat distributions can take place, and our Department of Parks and Recreation, we've given them this instruction to really have several around the county. They are planning several activities for children to receive candy, a toy, and a do-it-yourself craft. You can find more information about this on our website, pgparks.com. So Maryland National Capital Park and Planning is taking on this, and they will be at various community centers around the county to have this distribution, safe distribution for our kids. And so it goes without saying that we're advising people to avoid large gatherings. This means that large street parties or festivals should also not take place. In addition, haunted houses will not be open in the county this year. And however, those who are looking for something to do with their families, there are still plenty of other options to consider. Families can visit Outdoor Pumpkin Patch or Orchid. There are those who take pumpkins home, they carve them, decorate them. You can also host a virtual Halloween costume contest with other family members or friends, or have Halloween movie night with members of your household. Whatever you choose to do, we just want you to remember to be safe. And remember, we won't be in this posture forever. This will be Halloween 2020, and we're just hoping that if we all continue to do the things that the medical professionals are asking us to do, it will be safer for us to resume those activities in the future. So I know Dr. Askew will speak more about costume safety, but remember that COVID is still present in our community. And that we will not be able to have traditional Halloween, but there are still plenty of ways that we can make it enjoyable and safe for our children and for our families. And elections. I also want to give you a brief update on the 2020 general election. As you know, this pandemic has changed so much about our lives, and of course, how we're able to vote has also been impacted, but I'm pleased to say that Prince George's County officially now has 22 ballot drop boxes that are available for use around the county. Those have already been installed. Last week, we received them from the State Board of Elections. All 22 of these current drop boxes will be available until 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 3rd. No later than October 17th, we will also install an additional 20 drop boxes, which will give us a total of 42 drop boxes that will be spread out across the county. And these, once they are eventually installed, will also be available until 8 p.m. on November 2nd. 42 drop box locations for you to drop off those ballots. And so you can find a full list of those drop boxes on our Board of Elections website, elections.mypgc.us. And if you have already requested your mail-in ballot, be sure to start checking your mailbox for it. It should start coming any day now. I know a lot of people have received those ballots, and people are beginning to post pictures of them going to those drop boxes, excitedly beginning to vote. Once you receive your ballot, remember to fill out the instructions provided, put it in the return envelope, sign the voter oath on the envelope. Don't forget that part. Please remember to sign the voter oath on the envelope and then seal the envelope, and it'll be ready to be returned by mail in the prepaid envelope or dropped off at one of the drop boxes that I mentioned. So far, we have received over 236,000 requests for mail-in ballots, and so Prince Georgians absolutely intend to vote and vote big this year. But I want to remind voters that voting by mail is still the safest way to vote in this election. But you absolutely must request your ballot immediately in order to be able to do so. Remembering, of course, again, what you received initially in the mail was an application for the ballot. It was not the ballot, so don't forget that you have until October 20th, which is quickly approaching, to request your mail-in ballot. But remember, you can, if you haven't done so yet, you can do so in a number of ways. You can go online to elections.maryland.gov. You can text V as in voting, B by M, VBM, voting by mail, to 77788. And so if you still have the application that was mailed to you several weeks ago, don't forget to fill it out, mail it, or go to the County Board of Elections in Largo and complete the application in person. So remember also that the deadline to register to vote is coming up very soon on October 13th. That's next week. So we want you to remember to do that as well. And if you plan to vote, we want you however you plan to vote, and we do want you to plan to vote, remember that we want you to vote early, if at all possible, and to vote safely. Start making your plan to vote today. If your plan is to vote by mail, make sure you request your mail-in ballot immediately. If you plan to vote in person on Election Day, remember as well that we will have those vote centers located around the county for you to vote on Election Day. There will be 42 of them for you to vote, 11 early voting locations beginning October 26th through November 2nd. So we want you to make that plan today. And finally, I want to just also mention another issue that is really near and dear for our community and for communities across the state and across the country, and that is relating to mental health. As this Saturday, October 10th, is World Mental Health Day. We know that mental health was already an important issue prior to the pandemic, but what I can tell you, has really become even more critical now due to the additional stress that so many in our community are facing. I'm hearing that we're seeing 4 times the amount of a need in terms of mental health care. And so what we know is that our county must invest even more in mental health care. Which is why in the spring and fall we have hosted so far, and I want to thank Dr. Askew again. His team has been really forward-thinking on this issue and really done a lot. We had yesterday, for example, just hosted one of several mental health webinars through our office to provide people with the resources they need, and they have just been excellent. So our focus this fall has been on children and families with the start of the school year being in a distance learning posture. But as you may recall, I have also worked to address this by sending enabling legislation. This is very important. We have sent enabling legislation to the County Council that would allow us to reallocate funds so that we can build a mental health and addictions care facility right here in the county. This legislation did pass the council. It's now is a referendum question on your ballot. That for the 2020 general election, specifically it is question D. That discusses the ability to reallocate that funding to build the mental health and addictions care facility. We'll continue to find ways to expand mental health resources in our county, but remember that if you or anyone you know needs help, please don't hesitate to reach out to Maryland's helpline by dialing 211, or you can text MD 741-741 at any time. So this is an issue that we're going to keep an eye on, but I ask you, please look out for others. And I know I almost don't have to say that to Prince Georgians. You all have done an amazing job, but let's look out for each other and make sure that the people around you are doing okay. This is a really tough time. So as I wrap up, I want to remind everyone that we are on the right track for a very strong recovery. You all have done an amazing job. Post-pandemic, I believe that we're going to do especially well. We have so many tools that we need in place to prepare for our future. We continue to do that through our COVID recovery task force. Our businesses will be able to recover. We're going to support them through this. We'll support our families, support our children in their education. And I know we're all ready for things to return to normal. For us to be able to celebrate so many of the things that we're accustomed to celebrating. We have a ways to go, but as I have said to you on many occasions, COVID-19 will not have the final say. We absolutely will come out of this. We are going to come out stronger and better than ever before. So I thank all of you again for your sacrifices and for being so responsible and so caring of each other, for looking out for each other. But now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Askew, who will give you an update from the Health Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam County Executive. Of course, I'm also a retired pediatrician, so delivering some of this news about Halloween is near and dear to my heart and somewhat difficult, but it's just going to be a different Halloween this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun. As you know, through this pandemic, our wonderful health officer, Dr. Carter, and his team at the Health Department have been watching the numbers closely to determine when it is safe to appropriately relax additional restrictions. We're hoping that that can happen sooner rather than later, but we have to stay strong and be cautious. We must keep making the smart personal choices to assure that our families and our communities are safe. and as healthy as possible. Our numbers continue to show that phase 2 is exactly where Prince George's County needs to be for now. The major pieces of data we examined for reopening are rate of new cases, the positivity rate, and the infection rate. And I'll reiterate some of the things that the county executive has said, maybe go into a little more depth on that. For most of September and now into October, the county continues to show weekly new cases in the total range of about 700 per week. We haven't seen a steep enough and consistent enough drop in new weekly cases to think we are ready to reopen more parts of our county. The county's daily case rate is also trending back up a bit. It's now at 11.5 cases per 100,000 population per day for last week, and that's still too high for us. We need to see that number stay below 10, but stay below 10 on a consistent basis. As far as positivity, we are experiencing, a little bump in the road right now. About 2 weeks ago, as the county executive mentioned, the rate at which COVID tests came back positive in the county dropped below 4% for the first time, getting down to 3.5%. Preliminary data from last week, however, shows an increase to about 4.2%. And that puts us still at medium risk because we're below 5, and we have been encouraged because we have been below 5% for 3 weeks now. We also keep track of the county's infection rate. Now, that's the rate at which someone with COVID infects other people. Again, the infection rate, the rate at which someone who has COVID will infect other people. It's a very important number. On average, each person who has COVID-19 in Prince George's County is passing it on to maybe one other person, 1.0 to be exact. This means COVID is still spreading in a slow and controlled fashion here in county. Again, slow and controlled. The goal is to have an infection rate below 0.9, below 1 and below 0.9 to slow that spread, and that gives us the opportunity to open up more. We're not there right now. These numbers illustrate why we must be cautious and make tough but necessary decisions to keep our families safe. Due to the ongoing risk of COVID transmission in the county, we are strongly recommending Prince Georgians do not do the traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating this Halloween. Again, we strongly recommend against the traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating activity this Halloween. If you choose to trick-or-treat, stay with members of your household and closely follow health and safety guidelines. And we've gone through these numerous times throughout the pandemic. Please remain at least 6 feet away from others, avoid large gatherings, have hand sanitizer with you and use it, and please wear face coverings. Rather than using a costume mask, in fact, we would please ask you to consider using or creating a Halloween-themed face covering instead. Costume masks on top of cloth masks also can be a bit dangerous because they can limit breathing. So we suggest that costume masks, for instance, costume masks by themselves usually have air holes in the eye, in the nose area, in the mouth, and the eyes, and do not provide the same protection as face coverings. So if you have a Halloween costume, the safest thing to do is to wear a face covering rather than a traditional mask. The county will not allow indoor haunted houses this year. There's just too much transmission risk and too much risk of transmission in the county to start. People are most likely going to be, in cases like that, crowded in a dark space, can't see who's near you, who's away from you. They cannot truly personally social distance from each other in a haunted house. And in addition, if it's a good haunted house, you're going to be screaming at the top of your lungs. And frankly, if you're screaming with a virus that's passed on by respiratory droplets, that is a totally inappropriate situation for us to put our children in, to put ourselves in order to continue to protect our community. We are also, as the county executive mentioned, not recommending the trunk or treat kind of activities where treats are handed out of trunks of cars, lined up in large parking lots. That ends up being very much like door-to-door trick-or-treating. Instead, we are encouraging towns and municipalities to host one-way, drive-through trick-or-treat activities where candy can be handed out to families in their vehicles and proper safety precautions can be put into place and maintained. We do not recommend individuals or neighborhoods organize their own drive-through trick-or-treat activities. We really want the municipalities to handle this activity to make sure the precautions are maintained appropriately. There are also many ways to have fun and be safe on Halloween. The county executive had some great ideas. She always has great ideas, by the way. But the county executive threw out some great ideas like carving and decorating pumpkins or hosting virtual costume parties or contests. How about doing an outdoor Halloween scavenger hunt? In other words, children in your neighborhood basically play I Spy and try to find different Halloween objects while walking from house to house, admiring decorations at an appropriate social distance. Closely following the guidelines Prince Georgians have done a good job adhering to date will give our communities the best chance to have a safe and healthy Halloween. Staying safe and making the smart choice about our activities is so important, especially right now as we approach the fall and winter months. We do not want to get caught off guard by a combination of influenza or flu season and COVID spread in the community at the same time. Please, 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 please get your flu shot. Stay safe, look out for each other, and I can end by just saying I am extraordinarily proud to be a Prince Georgian today, watching how our community, our residents have responded to the pandemic and look out for each other and care for each other. So I am Prince George's proud of the work that we're doing, and I look forward to continuing to serve and mitigating this pandemic, and someday the pandemic will be done. Thank you.
There was one other exciting activity I forgot to mention is that we are now, as of October 16th, accepting also permit requests for outdoor movie theaters. So we hope to also have that available to our families very soon as well.
So with that, we'll take any questions.
Executive, how bad has it gotten down at National Harbor? What are you hearing? What prompted you to speak out?
Well, you know, I received a call actually from a business owner who was just so distressed. And she said, oh my gosh, you know, I have hundreds. I couldn't even believe it. She said, I have hundreds of kids who gather in front of my business, especially over the weekends, that many of them were coming into her restaurant, that they were ordering food, refusing to pay for the food. And when she would try to, or the staff would try to ask for the money, that assaultive kind of things were happening as well. And so I went to National Harbor. I told her, you know what, I'll be there this weekend. And I want to see what you were mentioning and come there to offer my support. And sure enough, I mean, they are there by the thousands. Kids are there by the thousands. What we observed, and we have no problem, of course, with kids visiting the National Harbor with their families. We want this a family destination. But what we have noticed instead is that there are a number of children in the thousands who are unaccompanied. These are minors whose parents drop them off, or they take ride share or something like that, and they are there, and they're behaving like kids, which we expect of kids, which is why kids should be accompanied and supervised at places like this and not left by themselves. So that's what we saw. We are working with the businesses there. And working also with many county agencies to make sure that we're doing our part to maintain the business climate there. But again, this is not about passing blame. I'm not blaming the children who are children and who are looking for activities to occupy themselves during a very challenging time. I understand also the inclination of a parent who knows that the child wants to see their friends. That's the reason we're working with Maryland National Capital Park in planning. We're going to work with in many other ways to make sure we're creating activities that are constructive for our kids to engage in and that are safe and that are not disruptive to business. So we're going to work as a community to make sure our kids and their families get what they need. But we also want to make sure that we don't create unsafe situations or allow for behavior at the National Harbor that is not conducive to business.
So what can you do beyond as parents to not take them there? Is it police? What?
Well, we're trying to really use a community approach to this. It may come the case, to be very honest with you, where we have to take action along with the businesses there to close, to change hours, to change our hours there, and to really change the way that we do business there until we can get it under control. And I think we've pretty much, we've done a job, I'm hearing over the last few weekends, that we are controlling it a little better. But you know what? The best thing for us to do is to please ask parents to work with us on this. Do not rent hotel rooms for groups of minors and leave them at that hotel for parties and other things. And so we're just appealing now to the public to please assist us. And again, it's not that we're saying just don't take them. We're saying we have other activities for your children.
Madam Candidate, I guess we mentioned this was the right question in terms of activity. You mentioned about the basketball court, that'll be open.
Yes.
Is there a date of when some of the rooms will be up and specific locations right now?
Those should be immediate. You should notice, and Dr. Askew may have more information about this, but I think you should see that pretty immediately. We've been working with the chair of Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, Elizabeth Hewlett, and I know that they're working, so you should see that in the coming days that those are happening.
And you should be able to find it also on their website, because there'll be certain ones and they're only outdoor.
Right.
So they will be posted, thank you for that. They will be posted on the website as well.
And also, you talked about keeping it half court. And is there a message you can give for some young people who could be listening that whole court is still not conducive for playing basketball?
Yeah, so I have to confess, first of all, I don't know how to play basketball. They tell me that half court is the way to go, and so I can only pass along.
Let's say that's true.
Yeah, okay, I can only pass along in full disclosure what was passed along to me. I don't really understand how it works, but they tell me that for our kids it is safer if we do the half court. We should not have the breakout tournaments, of course, because those attract larger crowds and things of that nature. But the half court is safe to do practices and drills and that kind of thing.
Any further questions? Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.